Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside the Outside. I'm Christy Kirk.
And I'm Gary Kirk. So glad you could join us.
You may have noticed we've been away for a while, and that's because it's summer and we ended up traveling and going outside, and we've got a lot to share with you this episode about fun things we've encountered outside, some new products we've tried out that we can't wait to tell you about, and family traditions. So we ended up doing some unexpected traveling this summer.
Yeah, we both ended up in the Sunshine State.
Yes, but not together. And I was in D.C. for work. And then I was in the woods of West Virginia, but for my annual girls trip, which is definitely not a camping event.
No, and it's more like girls around a fire.
Yes, we do have a fire, so there is some outside. And you actually, though, went camping. You've been in the woods this summer.
I did. So we took off on our annual, what has turned into bike packing trip. It started out as an annual backpacking trip for a bunch of us guys, and now it has turned into bike packing. Officially this year, everybody that went rode a bicycle.
I love the idea of bike packing because I enjoy mountain biking. I enjoy doing things other than camp. So the whole bike thing works.
Yeah, for you, camping is not the draw, it's the trail. And for me, I like it all. And truthfully, I've said it before, I would rather camp than hike.
So I'm hearing a lot of people taking bike packing trips. It's becoming sort of a new I don't want to say trend, but more people are doing it. So
yeah,
tell
I'm
me
hearing
about
more
yours.
of that. So, it can be done in a variety of ways. Some people, instead of hiking over distances and camping along the way, they'll do it on a bicycle. For us, it's a ride in and set up a base camp, and then we do activities from there. For us, it's primarily fishing. We're up in the Cranberry Glades Wilderness area in Monongahela National Forest. It started out for us years ago, back in the 90s. Early 90s, we would go in backpacking, and then a couple people started taking bicycles just so that they could hit fishing spots that were a little further away and out of the way. And it started to sort of become its own tradition. And this year was the first year that everybody that went actually rode a bicycle. And almost everybody ended up having a trailer, including myself. My dad and I, we built a trailer, and he had built one for himself a couple years ago. And that's one of my new favorite ways to do this kind of thing, because you can take so much more. This is not your typical wilderness backpacking experience, even though we're miles from anything. It's very remote type of camping, but we were able to take so many different kinds of luxuries because I have this trailer behind me. Dylan and I didn't even have to wear backpacks, which was kind of cool to be able to, have the freedom of movement.
Yeah. I'm not interested in a camping trip. I like a trip where you're doing something and you just camp because you have to. But I love the idea of a mountain biking trip, multi-day, with this sort of idea. The challenge is you just have to make sure with mountain biking that you're in a park or a forest where you can be on the trails with your bike.
Right. And, just to clarify for the listeners, this particular location we're going in, while it is very remote, it is a gated dirt road. So it's not like we're doing hardcore mountain biking. We are on mountain bikes, but we're on a gated dirt road that does get a little bit of patrol from forest rangers. So, if something really bad happened, you could get some help, but it's not an immediate kind of thing. There's definitely no cell service or anything like that. So you need to be aware of your surroundings, and, you have to mind all the normal outdoor rules and regulations, and then, have to be conscious of bears. This is becoming one of the hot spots for bear activity. Come to find out, I didn't know this until just recently. The Cranberry Glades Wilderness area is actually a black bear sanctuary. And up until just a couple of years ago, they didn't allow any type of black bear hunting in there. So there's a lot of bears.
Yeah, this time of year, it's always bears. You just have to watch out for them. And I was about to say in this part of the country here in the East, but you have to just as much, if not more so, out West. So it's always smart to be mindful of bears when you're in the woods.
Yeah.
But I think our next trip needs to be a mountain biking multiple day trip.
Yeah, I'm all for that. With or without a trailer. The trailer gave some luxury to it, but even just wearing a backpack, like we used to do, you can cover so much more territory, and see a lot more things, assuming that you're physically fit and ready for that kind of activity and you've got the right kind of trails.
Yeah. Well, we can't go multi-day with trailers because our trails are going to be too difficult, Gary Kirk.
Is that right?
Yeah. So that's something exciting to look forward to. And if any of you have gone bike packing or planning a trip, we'd love to hear about it. So tell us all about it on social media. I think another thing that is really unique about this trip that you do each year in Cranberry, and something we wanted to share with the audience, is just the tradition. It has become a family tradition for it's your dad, it's you, your brother-in-law, your nephews, and now your son as well. I think, having these outdoor adventure family traditions, it's a great way to, build activity and build a love of nature into your families.
Yeah, it's a connection for me. It's one of those trips that I really look forward to every year, and I won't miss it for anything. As I've said before, we started in the early 90s, and it was me and my dad, and we went with a bunch of friends who had already been going prior to us. And, it was something that after I got, in my mid-20s or so, all of a sudden it was harder to get the gang together, and then the trip kind of ended. And when I was talking to my dad one day and we were sharing some of the stories with my nephew and my son, and it was like, why aren't we doing this again? So we revived it a few years ago, and I refuse to miss it. Dad and I actually went last year when nobody else went because they swore that it was going to rain and it was going to flood, and the weather report did look really grim. Dad and I got there and had one of the best trips ever. We caught so many trout that we couldn't even eat them all. It was just one of the best trips ever. And that was the time he and I both agreed that no matter what, we will always be there. Some people may come, some people may go, but we will always be there. And it's something that I hope that I can instill that in Dylan, so that, every year, no matter what gets in the way of life, you can count on that one weekend always being able to be there together.
Yeah, I think that's really, really cool. And I think, there are lots of ways you can build in. I know a lot of people will do a New Year's Day hike as a family. Some people will do Christmas outdoors. So a lot of cool ways that you can bring that adventure and the outdoors into your family and make it a tradition. And you don't have to buy anything, and it's not commercial, and it's just really back to nature and back to relationships. And I think that's really nice. With electronics and social media, we just keep getting further and further away from those connections. And so I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, I really enjoy the area that we go in is classified as the National Quiet Zone, Radio Quiet Zone. So there's actually no radio frequencies in that area as a protection for the Green Bank radio telescope. And as a result of that, there is no electronics, even if you wanted it. It doesn't exist. There's no cell coverage. There's no Wi-Fi. When you enter this area, it is a dead zone. So it forces you to check out, and you're off the grid.
But I wouldn't be able to close my rings on my Apple Watch.
I think you could close your rings. It just wouldn't be updating with the cloud.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a reason There's a reason I don't participate in that madness. But I think it's great to have those sorts of family traditions. And you did something really interesting, and our fans on social media have been really interested in this bike rig that you've created, because he's talking about a trailer. And for those of you who haven't seen the pictures, you might be thinking of like some commercial trailer for a bike.
Right. No, I designed this myself. Dad had built a version of it based off of a hand dolly, which was heavy as hell. It has since been refined, and he no longer uses the hand dolly anymore. But based off of his, I thought, I could do it another level above that. And what I wanted to do was design one around foot lockers. So I got these plastic foot lockers, 2 of them, and each one of them is about 70 liters, give or take. So between the 2 foot lockers, I have 140 liters, give or take. And I built this trailer frame out of aluminum that the lockers fit down on. And then it just connects up with this little hitch onto my bicycle. And lucky enough to have a dad who knows how to weld and do some fabrication. And then, I designed it all in Adobe Illustrator, and we went up there, put it all together in a weekend, and finally took it out on the road, and it worked awesome.
Yeah. And we'll share some more pictures of the bike trailer.
Yeah, my plan is to actually pull together some photos and the actual drawings that I made in Illustrator and share them out so that if somebody wanted to recreate it or show me how they could do it better, because I promise you, I'm not a fabricator. I just had this, what I thought was a cool idea, and it worked out for me. But I'm sure somebody could take it up to the 2.0 level.
And also on your trip, you tried out some new gear that we've been testing.
Yeah, we tried out a couple different pieces of gear on this particular trip, and there was a couple standout items on this one. First one I want to talk about is lights. Everybody's seen the Luci light, this little inflatable light. They weigh nothing, compress down to next to nothing. And then when you get in camp, you can inflate them and it diffuses the light. Works really good. You can get them really cheap. They're, a lot of times they're like buy one, get one free for, $10. You could get 2 of them. So they sent us one to try out. It's called the Luci Connect. And the big differences between this one is, one, it's got a solar panel on it, so it can recharge. It's got a USB port on there, so you can charge devices off of it. And the really, really cool feature is it has Bluetooth connectivity where you can turn the light off, you can turn it on. It's got multiple color patterns that you can select from. You can have it cycle through different colors, different dimming settings. You have full control over this thing with your smartphone. Now, I know we just talked about being able to disconnect from the world, but I'll tell you what, it was really nice to be able to connect to my light in the middle of the night when nature calls and you need to kick the light on and see if there's any bears hanging out in your camp. I was able to hit the light before I ever even undid the zipper on my hammock. So that was pretty cool.
And I like this light because it's really lightweight. It's easy to use. But I was thinking for kids, if they're traveling, like going to grandma's house or someplace, and it could be a quick and easy night light. It's really soothing. I loved the blue. That was one of my favorites. And because you can cycle through different colors. And I think it could be really great for kids who want a night light, who need that sort of soothing light. Mm-hmm. Or, I think there are more applications with the light than just camping is what I wanted to get across. But I really thought it was terrific. I loved it.
Yeah, well, think about it. When we first got it, we didn't have a camping trip immediately planned, but it sat on the nightstand, and I would kick the thing on and cycle through some different color patterns while we were going to sleep. And it was just really, really cool to be able to do this because you can create custom settings. If you wanted to make it look like you're at a disco rave with all these flashing lights, you could do that. Or if you just wanted this nice pulsating, blue to white kind of colors to fall asleep to, it was really neat.
Yeah. And I do like having the ability to recharge my phone in the woods because no, I'm not on Facebook and I'm not texting while I'm in the woods, but we do use navigation apps in the woods. And then there are some, safety apps that you use too. And you want to keep your phone.
And the Kindle. We both usually have a book on our phone at any given time, and especially when we're camping. I love to read as I'm falling asleep, and to be able to have a light that can charge your phone, it'll do good.
Yeah, it's inside outside approved. You also tried out a new water filtration system on this trip too, right?
Yeah, this was a real standout item. It was something that it wasn't sent to us to test. I bought this from Katadyn. It's the Base Camp Pro. It does 10 liters of water with one fill up. And it's really cool because it's designed like a dry bag, and you scoop up your water. It's got the big wide mouth opening with your traditional dry bag roll top snap closure. And you can scoop up 10 liters of water in here, and it will filter roughly 2 liters a minute is what they say. I don't know if I was getting quite that amount of flow, but I would say pretty darn close, because compared to any other water filter that I'd used before, this was really cranking out the water. And it made it really nice to be able to just go over and scoop up water. We were camping right next to the water, so we could just go over and scoop it up when we needed it. We had 6 people in our camp, so, we were going through a lot of water, whether we were drinking or cooking or washing or anything like that. So this was a big game changer for us. In the past, we had always went and had to gather water and then wait for the purification tablets, the iodine tablets, or the Aquamira drops or whatever to go in there. But with this one, we could go over and scoop it up and hang it and had immediate water. Made it nice, too, that we didn't have to make as many trips to go out and get water. The Sawyer Mini, which was always my go-to and still is in many cases, that one just couldn't do the volume that we needed. Everybody's standing around with these little pouches and trying to squeeze out your water and everything. But, when it come time to wash dishes for 6 people that just ate this nice meal, it was really nice to be able to get that flow of water out of it.
So I'm always obsessed with weight when we're camping. How heavy was the filtration system?
It's 12 ounces according to the specs on the website. I didn't weigh it, but I can say it didn't feel like it weighed anything because it was in the box on my trailer. And it collapses down pretty small. I would say a little bigger than 2 fists size, if you put your fists side by side. So it's not as small as a Sawyer Mini, and it weighs more than the Sawyer Mini, but this was not one of those ultralight camping trips. So
right.
It was perfect for the situation. It's not something that I would necessarily take out for just you and I on the trail, but for 6 people, this was a really, really nice change. And it'll also do 1,500 liters of water before you have to change the filter. So that was pretty sweet too.
Yeah, that's great. And I could see it on a backpacking trip in hotter weather when you really need lots and lots of water that you could do a volume at a time. So cool. Glad to hear it worked out so well.
And I'll be honest, too, because we had the ability to get so much water, 1, it was easy to get to the water because we were camping beside it. And then 2, we could get 10 liters at any given scoop. Where it was so hot in the middle of the day, sometimes I would just go over there and put my head under it. And, that's not something you would catch me doing with a Sawyer Mini. I would just go over and, get in the creek. But I'm like, I got this thing right here. And speaking of that, they actually make a shower head adapter for this thing. So you could actually use it as a camp shower if you wanted to.
Very, very, very interesting. I'm probably never going to use it as a camp shower, but very cool. You never know. But I'm glad to hear that you had some good experiences and some cool new things that our listeners can maybe check out.
Yeah, something else I'd like to mention is the setup. We have been experimenting, you and I, for quite some time about how to be able to hammock camp, but also be together. Because when you're in a hammock, it might be nice and cozy, but you are by yourself. So a while back, we got one of the spreader bars from Dutch and some of the whoopee slings that had the spreader bar attachment so that we could camp side by side. Then, the bug nets were kind of weird. And then the tarp, I've never been able to find a tarp that quite worked right when you had 2 people underneath it. So Dylan and I, we camped this time side by side. And we didn't have to use a spreader bar. We actually found a triangle of trees that worked out perfect. But I took the Double D hammocks 4x4 tarp that I'd bought about a month ago and put that up. And this was the first time I'd had 2 hammocks underneath it. It was like a palace. So I highly recommend checking out tarp, whether it's the Double D hammocks or one of a similar size. If you want to be able to camp side by side, that is a really good option because you get that width to be able to cover both of you. And then another thing that Scott Buff from Terrapin Outfitters turned me on to when we did the kayaking trip a while back is getting a ground cloth. I'd never carried one before. We always took a little patch of Reflectix, so if you needed to kick your shoes off and on, you had something to stand on. But he said, get one of the ground cloths, which I did. And it was really nice because you've got this clean, dry space directly underneath both of the hammocks. And, you just walk up, get to the edge of it. That's where you kick your shoes off, take anything off dirty or whatever. And you have this nice, clean space there. That worked out really nice. A couple of them poked at me because I had this sort of, glamping setup going on over there with 2 hammocks. I had a little pop-up table, some chairs, a ground cloth. I had the party lights going on. We were set up. It was nice.
But I come back to how heavy is this? How heavy is this tarp? How heavy is a ground cloth? I think on a camping trip, a ground cloth, great. But on a backpacking trip, I can't imagine putting something up like that.
So the ground cloth, all this is a tent footprint. It weighs next to nothing. I don't have the specifics here in front of me, but it's going to be very lightweight. And I think that it's worth the weight and space in your pack, unless you are really being weight conscious and you've got like a lot of territory to cover or something like that. But for these weekend warriors, or maybe even just a week-long trip, I would totally make space for the ground cloth in my hammock or in my backpack. Now, as far as the tarp goes, the Double D Hammocks tarp is heavier than your typical tarp, but there are people out there that make similar size tarps out of some really lightweight steel poly, and that stuff, again, it would be totally worth the space, and I don't think there's much weight difference by adding just, an extra yard or so of material.
I'm sold on the bigger tarp. I am not sold yet on the ground cloth, so we'll see.
Yeah, Dylan definitely enjoyed it whenever he would come back from swimming and he could go jump down over there and not have to be tromping around in the mud when he was changing his clothes and stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't ever tromp in mud, so it's
really?
Not an issue.
I've hiked with you. I've seen.
I know, but
muddy.
I haven't had to worry about having a clean place to put my feet has never been an issue.
Well, maybe I'm just a little more dainty than you.
But apparently so. But anyway, we'll circle back to the ground cloth. We'll see how that works.
I really enjoyed it. And then, like I said, I had the Luci light hanging in there. Yeah. Dylan and I both enjoyed the fact that you could just kick this thing on, we had our hammocks set up away from the camp where the campfire was at, because I didn't want to get any, burning embers in my tarps or anything like that. I've been there and done that. But when it was time to go to bed and you're in bear country, it was nice to be able to hit that light on and, it would be 30 yards away and we could do that. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's really cool. Oh, no, I'm totally down with the light. I'm completely 100% on board with the light. I have not been sold on the ground cloth, but, who knows? Maybe next time I'll go, oh my gosh, what's my life been like without a ground cloth? But at this point, I think that, I haggle over the ounces. They have to bring me joy. I Marie Kondo my pack.
I see.
And
it did not spark joy yet.
Lights spark joy. I've always had little party lights in my hammock. The lights spark joy. The bear spray doesn't necessarily spark joy, but it sparks security. But a ground cloth, I'm not getting anything from that. So again, you have to
be determined, huh?
Yeah.
Inside the Outside is proudly brought to you by Terrapin Outfitters. Terrapin Outfitters is an innovative company that specializes in developing clothing and gear that enhance people's enjoyment of outdoor activities. Check them out at terrapinoutfitters.com.
And follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Look for the handle Inside the Outside Show.
For links to our social media and other stuff that we talk about in the show, be sure to check out the show notes and our website, InsideTheOutsideShow.com.